Now, Senator Leyonhjelm.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr Fahour, in 1988 there was a competition policy review which recommended removal of the monopoly of Australia Post with respect to business letters and a limit of the remaining monopoly by allowing private operators, provided they charge at least double what Australia Post charge. Now, this is asking you to speculate a little bit, but how would implementation of such a recommendation affect your business model?
Yeah, I'm testing the history because obviously I did not. Yes, I joined in 2010, and I'm not familiar with.
I have some more questions relating to business mail, so that's where I'm heading.
Yeah,
with this.
So maybe I can take that on notice if you don't mind, Senator.
Well,
but
we might not be necessary to come back to it.
Okay.
It's just, I guess, what I'm interested in is to what extent does Australia Post rely on the revenue from business mail in relative to other sources of revenue?
I will say this: our total letters business, the reserved services letters business in totality now is just under 28% of our total revenue. So what you can see is versus 1988, when the whole business was all about letters basically, today letters is the smaller part of our business, and we're essentially a parcels e-commerce company.
Yes.
And then secondly, within that, the business mail is the majority of the letters that are sent, because the majority of mail for us is bills and statements that we send under the reserved services business.
Yeah.
Social mail, as we call it, is only 3% of our letters.
Yeah, understood. Yep. So in 2011, the requirement for ACCC approval of increases in prices was limited to ordinary letter services, not business mail. So you could increase your letter services on business mail without requiring ACCC approval. So since 2011, have prices for business letters increased faster than the prices for ordinary letters?
The price of business letters today versus ordinary letters today, I'll get you the exact mathematics of it, but there's no question that we have been trying to reduce the losses, because the majority of the mail is business mail by definition, and we lose money. We've lost money every year since 2009 on letters.
Yeah.
So the reality is that customers, business customers, have been getting a fairly substantial discount on the efficient costs, which is what the ACCC reviews, Senator. And what they're saying is that our efficient costs, the prices that we're getting from business customers, gives them too big a discount for us to comply with the requirements of making a commercial rate of return. We are not making a commercial rate of return, and still do not make a commercial rate of return. We don't even make profit on that business mail. So in effect, what's been going on in the last 5 years is that the taxpayer has been cross-subsidising businesses through us to send mail at a discounted price.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I guess I'm just trying to gather a bit of information here rather than suggest that you haven't done anything appropriate so far. But I interpret that to say the prices for business letters have increased faster than the prices for ordinary letters. Is that would that be right?
No, I said I would come back to
exactly
the calculations.
Okay. So are you able to answer in respect of costs of business letters? Have they increased faster than the costs associated with ordinary letters?
I'm not prepared with the exact mathematics of that, but of course, Senator, I'll take that on notice. Yes. And I'll provide you the answer to that question.
Thank you, if you would. Now, this, I think you'll probably be able to answer this one all right without reference. Are the users of business letters less responsive to price increases than the users of ordinary letters?
I don't have the exact sensitivity of volume and price, but what I can say for the whole category, and pretty much it's mostly business because it's 97% of our mail is business mail and 3% is social mail, is that the elasticity of demand hovers in the order of 0.29. So what that effectively means is that it's relatively price inelastic in the short term, but extremely elastic in the long term, because every business out there is right now going online, encouraging all its customers to go online, and whether our price is 50 cents or 60 cents, because as you know, Senator, businesses pay a 25% or so discount off what consumers pay. So businesses are actually getting a cheaper price in the order of 65, 70 odd cents, 75 cents versus a consumer who pays $1. And what we're saying is that they are all substituting as fast as they can to digital forms, and what we need to do is to at least recover our cost for that service that we provide.
Yep. But those discounts for business are for volume. Have you noticed any movement of small volume business letters to ordinary letters as a consequence of price increases on business mail?
Why would they do that? Because the business customer gets a cheaper price than the ordinary price.
That's volume dependent. When it's not volume dependent, is that true?
All businesses, it doesn't take a lot of volume. Like, for example, take the promo prices that we have, promo product, a lot of P's in that, but that one there is at a 25% discount, and you only need 4,000. That's not a lot of business mail. 4,000 items, and you automatically qualify for a 25% discount. So I would say to you, a lot of businesses have really benefited from that 25% promotional price, and that was introduced at the same time as letters reform, in addition to the freezing of prices for concession card holders in the country. 5.7 million Australians only pay 60 cents, which is the 2010 prices, and Christmas cards, which were frozen at 65, or season's greetings cards, I apologise, were frozen at 65 cents, and that was also frozen. And then we introduced a 25% cut for promotional marketing material to support small businesses. So really, at the end of the day, the people who ended up having to pay a little bit more to cover the losses were the people who primarily used it, which I would say to you are very big institutions, like the banks, the telcos, and the government itself.
Yeah, and to what extent have you noticed that what I'm told have been price increases on business letters that some constituents suggest they're noticing them? To what extent do you think that's accelerated their use of electronic communication?
We don't think it's done any of that. Our modelling and our forecasting and the work we've done with the ACCC, who approved this, did not object, I should say, apologise, did not object to our actions.
Did you have to ask them? It's business letters.
Yes. The Act requires us to...
Only ordinary post?
No, for our regulated mail.
Business mail?
Yeah, but the business mail sits in under the regular price, so therefore you can't go more than this until you move this one. So in effect, you've got a quasi oversight on that. Yeah. But I would say to you that this is very important. This point, we had predicted exactly what would happen, and we used this relationship between price and volume, the 0.29 metric that I gave you, and we were nearly 100% accurate in our prediction as to what would happen. The net effect was a positive effect, and that's why we lost less money this year than what we lost last year.
Do users of business letters cross-subsidise ordinary mail?
That is not permitted in our modelling and in our pricing. What is really going on is there is a great cross-subsidisation that the ACCC has talked about for years now. And the cross-subsidisation that's going on is the successful parcels business that competes in the commercial world is cross-subsidising the entire lettuce product because it all loses money.
Yeah.
And the issue that we have is we have a service that is 49% less lettuce per letterbox, so it's nearly halved. And we have this very successful commercial business that we compete against global giants, the global giants, and international post offices like Japan Post, Singapore Post, UPS, DHL, FedEx, and they're all competing against us. And our little business is standing up and fighting these global $100 billion companies. And what we also have to do is not just compete, we have to actually subsidise this loss-making lettuce business, which is soaking up our capital in a very rapid rate. And I think, Senator, you've told me in the past this point, which is that's not a recipe for long-term success.
No, I agree. I'm merely pursuing this business versus ordinary issue. I'm interested in that. There's been a bit of commentary on it in my circle, so I'm interested in your thoughts on it, that's all.
And what my main argument to you is that the majority of our mail is business mail, and if that's the majority of your business, i.e. 97% is business mail, then that's what really matters to us, and we've got to stop the bleeding in that.
Yes, understood. All right. So, what would prevent you from improving the flexibility of your delivery operations? What options do you have available that you could adopt that would improve the flexibility of your delivery operations?
The letters reform initiative that was passed through the Senate and the Parliament of Australia gave us a range of options of how to be more efficient, including investing in better equipment to lower our and be more productive in what we do. When we've looked at what else we could do, there were requirements that are set out in the CSO that drive your fixed costs. The business is about 90% fixed and about 10% variable cost. So there's not a lot of movement in the variable cost versus fixed cost nature of the business. And so therefore what drives the fixed cost, which ultimately is your question, is the CSO that the Parliament of Australia sets. And if you want to tackle the fixed costs, you've got to tackle the CSO.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, all right. The CSO, yeah. So things like centralisation with fewer delivery centres, assigning indoor tasks to certain staff and outdoor tasks to others, and improvements in mail flow control, would they make a difference?
They're all in this letters reform program. I might add, Senator, maybe you may have seen this in last year's report, but when we put it forward to the Parliament in that reform and in our corporate plan, it outlined that these changes, which I mentioned to the Senator just a few minutes ago, over the next 4 years, these have reduced our forecast losses from the next 5 years from $5 billion down to $1.5 billion. So those types of changes that you're talking about are going to reduce, and others, are going to reduce our losses in the tune of $3.5 billion. And that is the best way to keep your prices down, is by being more efficient and more productive.
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
but with no forced redundancies.
Yeah. I know you're being sensitive to the senators in the room, but yeah.
Well, I'm also being sensitive to the fact that I signed an MOU, and it was part of the agreed letters reform that the government has accepted, which is we won't do any forced redundancies in the letters area of people who are willing to change and adapt and grow with our business.
So, what are the impediments to you centralising your sorting of mail more than you do at the moment?
We do centralise on a state basis across the nation. That's required. We can't do any more centralisation because of the CSO requirements and the service standard that's required for delivery. If the CSO changed, of course, we would change our fixed cost structure accordingly.
Okay, so you've got a number of reform options available to you. Which have relatively good prospects for gaining union support and which face union opposition?
All of the changes that we thought made sense to help us reduce the losses we put forward last year. We did a large consultation program. We negotiated with our various stakeholders, including licensed post offices, unions, employees directly, the community, and we adopted all of the major changes that we wanted. There were certain rules placed upon us. We accept the rules of what are accepted.
Who placed those rules on you?
Well, for example, we have a priority product and we have a regular product. The priority product is only 8% of our volume, but it imposes a certain requirement.
So my question was heading is what you've been talking about is normal cost reduction for any business that's losing money. It's a no-brainer. So I'm not disagreeing with you at all on that. What I'm asking really is, do you have a flexible enough business arrangement that you can proceed with reducing all the costs that could be reduced without damaging customer service? Or are there some that are no-go areas?
Oh, no. We're very comfortable that everything that we can do, we are going to do. And
everything you can do?
Within the rules of the CSO, I meant.
Oh, yes, okay.
Sorry, within the rules of the CSO, we are pulling every lever possible. But I have actually got a slightly bigger challenge, which is we have this declining business in volume on the one hand because businesses are all digitising, and what's happening is as that's going down, we're trying to grow this parcels delivery business. And so the best way for us to continue to reduce the costs in an orderly manner and bring your workforce along on the journey is to transition the resources and the people out of the declining business and put them into the growing business. And what that allows us to do is to keep reducing our costs, our resources, while the revenue and the volumes come down, but actually fund with our employees who are already skilled, trained, terrific people, the growth business.
Yes.
And that's the beauty of this transformation. Right now, to this day, we've done that incredibly well because, as I mentioned, the loss in the letters business has gone from roughly 400 million to in the order of about 150 million, which is a big turnaround.
It is. But in a previous question to Senator Urquhart, you talked about people who are very fond of the status quo and like retaining the status quo. Is that an issue for you in transitioning from people from the declining business to the growing business?
Look, there's always going to be people who don't like any change under any circumstance. And yes, that's a difficult issue. There are some people who are I think we've got an unusual situation where 45% of our employees are above the age of 50. And they are some of those groups of people are thinking less about new skills, new training, and they're thinking more around, I want to retire one day and just keep it as simple as possible until that point. When you've got 50,000 people who you're trying to worry about, this balance and the segments within that grouping is not completely homogenous.
Yes.
There are different clutters who have different needs and wants, and the challenge is sometimes more difficult with some versus others, Senator.
All right. Thank you, Chair. I think I'll leave it there.
Chair, can I just follow up in relation to the MOU that Mr Fahour talked about?
Yes, okay.
You said that you'd signed an MOU about not making staff redundant. Who was that signed with?
The National Secretary of the CEPU.
Right, great. Thank you.
Okay.
That's it. Thank